Alright guys, we're going to be talking about a very hot topic in the NFL right now, and it could shape the future of a lot of different franchises, including, I know for a fact, the Bears and the Cleveland Browns are actively trying to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, but I thought for a minute we would talk about Cleveland. Now, Cleveland is an interesting place. They have some good young talent on there. Really, a receiver. They have Terrell Pryor, who really came out of the scene this past season. Barely going over 1,000, but he did hit the 1,000 mark. Then you got Corey Coleman, who has a very bright future ahead of him. And then, on top of that, you have Hugh Jackson, who is one of the better young coaches in the NFL. You could see his effect and what he meant to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, not all of the Cincinnati Bengals' faults were Hugh Jackson. Obviously, they had a terrible offensive line. It was not a good idea to get rid of Mohamed Sanu and Marvin Jones, but you could definitely tell Hugh Jackson had a huge effect on Andy Dalton. Obviously, Andy had his best year under Hugh. Hugh is a very, very, very good offensive coordinator. Perfect example of that was against when he actually played us, the Dolphins. I say us, I'm a Dolphins fan. So when he played the Dolphins, basically, the way that he just schemed that game, obviously using Terrell Pryor and the Wildcat, utilizing all the different weaknesses of our defense, is very impressive. So they have Hugh Jackson. They have a very good football mind. And Hugh Jackson, so they have a really bright future. They just have to build the squad, and if Cleveland gives him enough time to build his team, then it'll be a very good team. Now this could be a huge piece in that. Also, I also got to admit that 49ers are interested in Garoppolo, depending on Kyle Shanahan and the firepower that they would. All of these teams, the firepower that they get up. But we're not discussing where he will land. I'm just giving you guys who's interested. But Cleveland is an especially interesting place because of Hugh Jackson and because he's such a great coach. I think he's a very, very good coach. It's a very interesting landing spot for him. Now, if you're a Cleveland fan, you look at the Patriots and you say, is he a system guy? Is he a product of Josh McDaniel's system, or is he an actual talent? Is he an actually prolific? Can he be a franchise guy? Now, from the small sample size, which is never a good idea in the NFL to go off of a small sample size. We saw him in 2 games. We saw him once against the Cardinals and obviously once against the Dolphins. Now, I watched both of those games, and the Cardinals game. The Cardinals love the blitz, and they have a lot of talent. They have Chandler Jones, they have Golden, they have a lot of talent up front, so they can get after the quarterback pretty fast. They're one of the best blitzing teams in the NFL. And Jimmy Garoppolo, coming out of college, one of his strengths was his quick release. Like, he makes decisions and he gets the ball out of his hands very, very fast. He's a very quick decision maker. His pocket presence has been criticized. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. I think he has the athleticism to move around in the pocket. I think he has good pocket presence. I don't think he has bad pocket presence. But again, it's a small sample size in the NFL. We're just going off 2 games basically, but in those 2 games, he was very decisive. He was very quick. One of the criticisms of Jimmy Garoppolo, though, was coming out of college, his deep ball accuracy. Can he drive a ball in there? And 2 of the NFL games he played, and in preseason, you kind of saw that a little bit. Some of his deep throws were a little off. He really did. I'm going to say he struggled to complete them, but again, small sample size. That was in preseason, which is not a good sign. But in the 2 games he played against us, I think he missed a deep throw against us. But another thing you could look at as a negative, and if you're the Cleveland Browns, you have to look as diligent as you possibly can. I mean, this depending on what they give up, and if they think he is a franchise guy, or is he a hold the fort guy. I don't know what Cleveland. I mean, if you're gonna trade for him, obviously Cleveland has an extra first round pick. They have the number 12 overall pick, so they have the firepower to get him. But another real negative about Jimmy. Other than the Cardinals, because the Cardinals had a very good secondary. I mean, they didn't win a lot of games, but they had a pretty talented secondary. They barely won the game that the Patriots did. But if you look more into his breakout performance, I would say, which he showed flashes of greatness against the Cardinals. He showed off his quick release. He showed off his fast decision making. But you look at the game against the Dolphins. You look at the game against the Dolphins. The weakness of that the Dolphins defense is the linebacker, and what teams did to beat us was utilize the quick pass game to nullify our defensive line, which is our strength on defense, is to getting after the passer. So to nullify that was the quick passing game, abuse the middle of the field, get the ball out of your hands fast. So that's what Jimmy does. That's his strongest. That's his strength. Is just quick release. He makes really good decisions. He's very accurate. Short to intermediate. He's very, very accurate. If he's in an elite passing offense like the Patriots, which they are by far probably the best timing passing offense, get the ball out of your hands quick in NFL history. For God's sakes, it's unstoppable. So you see that, and then you compare our weaknesses to that. Then you go, well, did he have a good game? Because you have to do this for a 16-game season. You have to do this against many different defenses, and when you get down to the playoffs, you're gonna do against elite defense that don't have any weaknesses. You're gonna have to be a playmaker. Is Jimmy Garoppolo that guy who can take over a game and win you games? Was the game against the Dolphins just because they play to our obviously he's got probably the best coaching staff in the NFL right now, because obviously they won the Super Bowl. I would argue differently for a lot of different teams, but they have one of the best at least. Is he a product of the system? Like I said, the best game he had was against us, which our weakness. I say us, I keep saying us, but against the Dolphins, the best game he had was against the Dolphins. But the weakness of our defense was was his strength. So do you look too much into that? I don't know. Is Jimmy a franchise guy? I wouldn't. If I was Cleveland, I'm not giving up a first rounder for him. I don't think I would give up a second rounder for him, because we talk about it all the time. Teams tend to look for the fast and easiest way to get the franchise quarterback, which is it's the hardest thing to find in the NFL. It's the hardest thing to find in sports. You cannot, even to find a great point guard in the NBA is more common, or at least a good point guard, than it is to find a good quarterback or a great quarterback, which is even more rare. But I can see, again, the positives to this. If you're a Cleveland fan, you look at Hugh Jackson. You have a great running game with Isaiah Crowell. You have that. You have the good football mind. You have a good teacher. You have a good system. So he's not just leaving a bad system. He's not going from a good, like a Brian Hoyer. He didn't go from Josh McDaniels to a bad coaching staff. He's going to a good coaching staff. He's going to a very good, talented coaching staff. So it's not like he's not going to somewhere that they don't know what they're doing. Is basically what I'm saying. So he could go to Cleveland and do pretty well. Now Cleveland's not. Even if they did get Jimmy, they're not a playoff team. But Cleveland could win some games, that's for sure, and make some noise in that division. They can be competitive, I guess, as you could say. So I don't know how much you were willing. If you really think Jimmy is, I don't think he is. I don't think. Just looking at all the facts, I wouldn't take the risk. But if you do take the risk, you could hit the jackpot. And get a franchise guy. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about Jimmy Garoppolo down in the comment section below. He could be Cleveland's savior, obviously. And then you look at, if you're Cleveland, you got Deshaun Watson in the draft, who, in terms of comparing weaknesses to strengths, two very different quarterbacks. But I don't know. It's a hard decision to make, because you get this one wrong, then Cleveland's gonna, especially if you give up a lot to get him. Cleveland's going to be in a very bad situation. It's going to make their situation even worse. So that's going to be it, guys. I am Skaggs83, and I will see you guys in